vein. Now, some people have taken issue with one of the questions on here. Rabbi Yanki's question, is Bishul Yisrael tuna a scam? Now, many mashgichim that do a lot of hashgacha t'midus know that tuna fish is some of the most physically taxing, Bishul Yisrael tuna fish is some of the most physically taxing issues for any mashgiach anywhere in the world. Where ad kedei kach, there are many mashgichim that won't do it. And they even believe that though, because there's no more money in it than anything else, and they believe that some of the mashgichim that actually do it are, let's just say, a little touched. Which reminds me, in Yonah D'Yoyma, I would just like to tell, I think Rabbi Rachik said it already, but I just want to tell you a little story from a real world-renowned kashrus professional, not Yankees Narisha titles. And this professional is Rabbi Yecheskel Orbach. I am zoiche to speak to Rabbi Orbach on a daily basis through our work that we have with the KSA. Years ago, there was a memorial meeting in the OU for some older secretary that was nifter before Shavuos. There was a masbid that got up and said a hesped. All of a sudden, Reb Cheskel Orbach started laughing uncontrollably. And everybody turned to him and said, "Was ist mishugas at the mitna hesped? You're talking in the middle of a hesped, how can you be laughing?" So he said, "I can't help it. Something that this masbid said just made me realize the real reason that we eat milchiks on Shavuos." He says the reason is because it says by Matan Torah, all sick people were healed. That holds true of anyone that had any mental issues. So Memela, everyone was actually in their right mind, and everyone was normal. So Memela, there were no mashgichim, so they had to eat milchiks. The Inyana D'Yayma of this little story is not just about Matan Torah, as we know. Yankee is already looking at me that I've overstepped my allotted time here. So let me just say, b'kitzer, the difference between Bishul Yisrael tuna and non-Bishul Yisrael tuna. The OU and those organizations that do not require Bishul Yisrael tuna, or having a mashgiach see every fish, which is really a lot more of the difficult part of it, hold that firstly, tuna is generally steamed before it's cooked in what's called a retort. Before it is canned and processed and put in what's called a retort. The retort is a place where they cook cans. Retorting is universally done with anything that goes in a can. It needs to be retorted because of possible botulism issues or other bacterial issues. And universally, anything that was touched by human hands and then put in a can is always retorted in one way or another. Al Kapanim, the OU holds that since the tuna is pre-cooked in the cooker, is steamed, there's an abaya de lo ibshita, which means that there is a shaila in Yerushalmi in the Durham about ishun cham, about had ishun, what kind of a din does that have? Does that have a din of bishul or not? And the Gemara doesn't answer. So there are many poskim, if you look in Darkei Tshuva, they bring it at La'alocha, there are many poskim that hold that if the issue is bishul akum, and bishul akum is a derabanan, so since it's only a derabanan, there's safek derabanan lekula, because the Gemara didn't answer. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole thing because there's an array of different opinions. Many people hold that steaming is not ishun cham b'chlal, that it has a different din altogether. And there are many, many different issues. But basically all the Hamish Ashgachas, and I believe the OK, and many others, hold that it needs to be Bishul Yisrael. The other issue is, the other big issue in these places is, if you look in the Chuvas Reb Moshe, he says that it's necessary for a Yid to actually see scales on every fish, which is basically what it says in Shulchan Aruch. There's even machlokes the Rambam and Ramban if it's a mitzvah's essay to do it, or if it's you're ever lois to say if you don't do it, whatever. The OU holds that since today the company tells us that it's only tuna, and there's a halacha of loymara nosai, that an expert, that one that is considered an expert in his field, will not do any action which will facilitate people saying that he's no longer an expert. And there's a Chav Yankiv that says that we can rely on this even by Daraisis, even when things are minatayr. There is another heter that they have for the bishul and everything else because it's done in factories. Rav Moshe says that we can't say this, but if the equipment is the type of equipment that one will not use in his home, and you don't know who the person is that is doing the cooking, we can't say that it's not, that we don't need Bishul Yisrael, because Chazal didn't say it. But Rav Moshe brings that we can use that as what's called a snif lahater. If you have other reasons to be matter, he says we can, we can rely on that. Now, basically, what we're doing, basically, when someone comes in to a tuna factory, a mashgiach on Bishul Yisrael, where these things are done mostly in Thailand and in the Philippines, where it's 95 degrees in the middle of January and about 200% humidity, and there's no air conditioning in the tuna plants. That's why some people think you're touched if you do this work. But Mamela, when you come in, the first thing is, and I thought Rabbi Teitelbaum was supposed to talk about it a little bit more, maybe he forgot about it, but one of the things that is negay, and it's negay in every factory, is something that's called a condensate return. A condensate return means that if something was cooked, even if it wasn't direct steam, but it was cooked around what's called a jacketed kettle, and it was cooked, and something treif was cooked around this jacketed kettle, the water in there and the steam is boileya will absorb this iser. And today it's very common that companies have what's called a condensate return, where this steam, this condensate, because they don't want to waste it, because it's a lot of water, and water today is expensive. There are areas in California where legally they need to have it, or else they get fined if they don't, where this condensate will return to the boiler. This is a very challenging situation for all industrial kashrus today, because that bliya is ulcer, and if it's going back to the boiler, and it will create new steam, that's ulcer. So the first thing when you come into a tuna plant, someone needs to look and see that there's no condensate return, which is generally the case in tuna, because the initial steaming is live steam, and that steam, when it hits some tuna, it smells. And believe me, it smells pretty bad. So they don't want to keep using it over and over again because they're afraid that it will affect the next batch of tuna adversely. But there is an issue with water. In other words, especially water from the retorts, where the cans, to cool the cans, after they are cooked in the retort, there's water that is flushed over it. This water goes back to a cooling tower and then recycles. This water also has a bli of iser. There's some, different people hold differently by it, but virtually all the Hamish Hashkachas hold that there is an issue with this. So that needs to be addressed, and you have to empty the cooling tower, which can take hours, and it can be a whole issue. Then the fun really starts when you have to kasher a tuna plant when it's 100 degrees outside. And you take little baskets and you put it into each retort, each pre-cooker, I'm sorry. You're talking about the trolleys and put it into a pre-cooker. And this pre-cooker, you need to kosher it at 212 degrees. All right, he's telling me to hurry up, so I'll hurry up. Nobody knows what I'm talking about anyway. Anyway, bottom line, these issues are very, very difficult and very time-consuming. And then you need to sit. There's usually two mashgichim that will sit for 12-hour shifts and just sit and watch fish, which is very entertaining, for 12 hours straight, and then come and turn on the cooker, even though he turned on the boiler, which was facilitated being Bishul Yisrael according to the Ramah for Ashkenazim. But everybody wants Bishul Yisrael according to the Beis Yosef, so therefore you have to turn on the cooker, which is a shayla in itself, because the Beis Yosef says you have to put the machvas alei, you have to put the pot on the fire, and here you're not putting the pot on the fire, but there's an Avnei Nezer that says if there's no fire, and there's obviously no fire when you're putting it in there, because if there was, the guy that wheels the retort in would have been gone a long time ago, which Agav, I just tell you for the OU, Bumblebee here, which is the first time I saw it in almost 30 years of doing this, that was Nebuch, a Mexican guy, in Bumblebee, here in California. They have a facility that just does loins. In other words, they don't do what's called ground fish, they don't do things from scratch, but they take loins that come from other places and put it in a can and do it. There was one guy that didn't realize that 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 they're about to close the door, and he went in to fix something, and they closed the door, and he basically was gone and fried. And the OU decided as a din d'Rabbanan, and they called me and decided that the retorts need to be kosher. Anything that was in there need to be kosher. And I was going to China that night, and I called Ruvain, and I called all the great OU people, and didn't get any response from anybody. So I didn't have a choice but to actually go do it myself. And I went there a little earlier and was talking to the Bumblebee people, and the QC manager, she led me around, and I saw that there was a little van that said ABC News. So I asked her, what is this van? She said, I don't know. They've been there all day, and I don't know what they want. So I got the things ready, and I told her, look, I don't have all day over here. I got things ready, and I said, I'll be back. I'm going to other places in the area. I'll be back in 2 hours, and that's when we're going to kosher these retorts. They already weren't a Ben Yaimai because the police shut the place down for 3 days and didn't let anybody in at all while they were investigating. Bekitzer, just to make a long story short, when I came back, this QC manager said, Rabbi, you had a miracle. I said, what was the miracle? She said, as soon as you left, about a half hour after you left, there was 4 ABC helicopters and about 50 ABC personnel that came running into this place here, interviewing everybody. Can you imagine if they saw the rabbi here coming to kosher the retorts on national television, what that would have looked like? So, Baruch Hashem, we had a miracle. At any rate, after this, after watching every fish and turning on the retorts, and then sitting there for labeling, all the hamish hashgachas need to have a mashgiach there for labeling. And I can tell you, the reason people took issue with what Yankee said here is because there is a big difference between Bishul Yisrael tuna and non-Bishul Yisrael tuna, and it is very, very difficult. And good night.
Actually, somebody asked me to ask that question, but thank you. Okay, we're about to get to question and answers, but first, after we learned everything about why you should not work in a tuna plant, Rabbi Nathanson is going to speak about vegetables, which everyone wants to know about, what needs to be checked and not. Now, I'm going to do him a big favor. He's not going to explain how to check your vegetables, if they need to be. I'm going to tell you a good website to go to, crcweb.org. CRCWEB.org. That is the Chicago Rabbinical Council. They're not affiliated with any of them. They're totally innocent. They have some videos. In my house, we actually used it on Erev Pesach. They have a video on how to check your lettuce. What are you looking at me for? You don't trust it? Oh, I got the okay look. Okay, so they have, and actually they list every vegetable there very clearly, what needs to be done, not to be done. So you can check it out and they'll tell you how to do it. But Rabbi Nathan is going to speak generally about vegetables, a number of very important things we need to know.
I'd like to just say from what my three colleagues have said before, first to tell you, I'll double that and not repeat it. Since those of you that know me know that I'm very often off topic, I want to start off topic. There was an alert which actually I didn't get, my wife got today, which I think it's important to know before Yontif, from the KF, Federation of Synagogues in London. They sent a letter to Rabbi Teichman, and it says, "Dear Rabbi Teichman, it's been brought to our attention that in the Los Angeles area, a wine is for sale carrying our kosher symbol. While this wine is not supervised at all, this kosher symbol is a pure falsification. The wine is called Galanto Tinto Roble 2008, produced by a company in Spain. They have a copy of the label that's attached. We'll leave it here just if you found it somewhere for Yontif, take it back to the store." So I actually have the easiest job of anyone tonight, because we in the conscious industry, have been extremely successful in driving everybody crazy about bugs. It's a din in Shulchan Aruch, you're not allowed to eat a bug. And what's come out now is that everyone's got their own way of how you have to do it, how you absolutely must do it. And being a bit of a renegade, I want to tell you, in the old days in education, I don't know if they do it anymore, there was a thing called result-based education. I don't know if it's still a zach or not. But the emphasis, the end goal is that when you're done checking whatever you're checking, you should know that what you have is free of insects. How you do it really doesn't matter, as long as what you're doing is effective. There's nothing especially holy about the OU's methodology. The OU thinks that whatever we have set up, and that's my employer, I mentioned it first, that this is effective and it works. The OK has their methodology. It's not identical. The Chav K has theirs, the CRC has theirs, the Star K has theirs. And I went poking around today, and I was very happy to see that, you can't see this, but I'll hold it up anyway. And the OU website, oukosher.org, they list generally how to check vegetables, and they have videos. If you go to the Chav K website, kof-k.org, they have a vegetable checking guide you can download, and I think there's some videos there also. You can go to the ok.org. They have a vegetable checking guide, they have videos, they have an app. I think OU has an app also. I got a BlackBerry, nothing works on BlackBerry, so. Not to be outdone, the Star K has the same thing. These are all on the web, it's all available for free. StarK.org, or what do they call it? Checkforinsects.com, the same thing. And since we're in a generation now where people don't like to read, I took a look on YouTube. If you put in, checking, vegetables for insects, there's a long list of videos that are posted that'll tell you different ways of looking at it, how to do this sort of stuff. They're printed files. So one of the reasons why we decided we're not going to get into how to check, that it's an end-based process, and as long as when you're done, you've got an insect-free, fruit, vegetable, what have you, you've done what's required of you. One of the things that when you read the list it says you absolutely can't do is that everyone says, or till now it said no to Brussels sprouts. So I went with a rabbi from New York who went to check out local OU restaurant in Oxnard, and he flipped out. He said, "How do you have Brussels sprouts on the menu? Nobody allows Brussels sprouts." I said, "Because it's all right." I said, "It's not all right. You can't check them." He said, "Okay, calm down, come in the back." And said, "Okay, look, chef, what do you do with the Brussels sprouts?" "Oh, we peel every leaf, the mashgiach checks it, we fry it, and we mix it up." I said, "Tell me what's wrong with that." He said, "Oh, you're right, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a normal way of serving Brussels sprouts, but end result, if you checked every leaf, good, it's okay, it works out." When we're talking about this, who's going to speak on what, I had a flashback to an earlier mashgiach conference that I was at for the OU, and one of the guest speakers was a quality assurance manager from Birdseye. And Birdseye at the time wanted to have their broccoli certified kosher. So he said, "Listen, I don't know what to do. I'm in a room with something like 150 rabbis. I'm not going to tell you kosher policy. So I don't know what they wanted me to do." I went down to the store in town. This is in Catskills. And he said, "Here, I brought 10 boxes of broccoli. So I'll show you what we do in the lab, and if you have questions, you'll ask me." So he takes out a white cloth and a little beeswax pan, and he pins it down, he opens the box, he sets it up, and he said, "Now I'll show you what I do," and he stops mid-sentence. Drops his hands and he says, "Anybody want to see an aphid? One of the 2 bugs you find in broccoli." So we all run down, no jeweler's loops, just, yeah, he said, "That's what you're looking for, that's the problem. Okay, sit down, we'll start again." He throws out what he has, another white cloth, another pan, he pins it down, another box, he opens it, and he says, "Where did I leave off? Okay, so this is what we do in our lab," and he stops again, mid-sentence. "Okay, who wants to see a thrip?" That's the other bug that you find in broccoli. So we all come charging down, he shows it, and he said, "Guys, this is why we were unsuccessful in getting OU Hashgacha. Because Birdseye as a company, we want to have the same label on the product everywhere." But he said, "You know that in different growing, different seasons, bugs are here, the bugs are not here." He said, "It's even a problem of just in the same region, your latitude." He said, we were in California, so my ears picked up. He said, "We went to 3 or 4 broccoli processors in the Salinas area," and he said, "Most beautiful looking broccoli I ever saw. Clean, no problems, nothing." We were just singing. He said, "The same day, we went down to San Diego, drove into Mexico, went to a processor there. Same day, same climate, same season." And he said the stuff was so badly infested. Not because it's Mexico, because you're like 300, 400 miles south. It's different. He said it was so badly infested, we canceled our run. So naturally we all said, "Hey, what? What happened to the broccoli that day?" He said, "Oh, they put a supermarket wrap on it. They're not going to throw it out." So he said, and that's why we're never successful in changing hashgachas, because we don't know how to shift stuff around. When we see ourselves the same thing, when does romaine lettuce have the worst problem? Pesach. It's a matter of the time of year. It's just, an extra big bracha that we seem to get. So, again, you've got all these different resources, where to look, how to look, what to do, what you don't have to do. No single one, method you can say is right and the other guy's wrong. If, you need to have a practice that seems to work for you, you should know what you're looking for, and, Google Images is really, really good for that. It's hard, how are you going to check something? I'm checking for bugs. What bug are you looking for? I don't know. Do you know what it looks like? I don't know. It makes it hard to look for that. But, if, the interested consumer, it's very, very simple nowadays. Yankee asked me to mention a couple things about the difference between fruit and vegetable in a can. Basically speaking, canned fruit that has no flavors added to it doesn't need hashgacha. Some will argue whether or not the stuff in China is now included in that. most people are leaning against, no, they're not included in that generic heter. Whereas vegetables do require a good hashgacha. It seems that the fruit guys are a little fruity, and the vegetable guys aren't. That the vegetable guys just learned that if a growing season is 3 months, and you've got your factory idle for 9 months, you have 9 months where you're not making any money. So they started packing all sorts of different things. One plant does chicken soup. Another vegetable plant, of course, does green beans and bacon. And the fruit guys never seem to know how to do that. So that's pretty much why we say that. Frozen vegetables, if it's a plain vegetable, and putting the insect issue aside, and putting Pesach aside, frozen vegetables you can buy without hashgacha. You want to have the extra hashgacha on it, so as someone told me in shul, listen, the Rav can burn for everything that happens, so we'll buy with hashgacha. Okay, it's no issur in buying with hashgacha. Is it a requirement? No, it's not required. What else? Bags.
Triple one.
Oh, the triple wash salad.
The bags, like at Trader Joe's, Ralph's,
Okay,
bag
so-
vegetables, bag lettuce.
General consensus, nobody agrees on anything. General consensus is that they call it classic salad or the American salad, it's iceberg, carrot, and cabbage, right? Triple washed, American companies, you could buy without hashgacha. You don't have to re-rinse it, you can use it. Does that mean that every bag is 100% free of anything? No. But it's free enough that you have a chazaka to say that it's okay and you don't have to play with it. Yes, when we were doing the supermarket tours at Ralph's during Pesach, we picked up a bag, and right across the window where you could see inside, there was actually a bug crawling. So the regional manager there wanted to actually literally fire the produce manager for the store, and we had to actually stop the tour and tell him, listen, it's not his fault. It's a sealed bag. Life happens. It's a mazel tov. We picked it up, talking about bugs. This is what happens. He didn't do anything. He finally calmed down. He thought it's an embarrassment to Ralph. So it happens. It happens. The other types of lettuce, romaine is always guilty without being checked. The spring salad, always guilty without being checked. Now, on those that do come with hashgachas, the more reliable hashgachas all made a backroom deal. You see, the hashgacha in part of the date code, it'll say Best Buy, May 25th, OV. If it's normally there and you pick up a bag and it's not there, that means the sample they took for that lot failed the bug test. Doesn't mean you have bugs in that bag, but that lot had enough of a problem that they didn't put the hextra on. So almost everyone agreed this is what they were going to do. Does it mean you're not allowed to buy it? No, you are allowed to buy it, but you have to check it. I don't know if you ever had the pleasure of actually checking through a bag of spring mix. I think they'll shoot me now. But you can buy it. You can buy it if you want to check it. If you don't want to check it, put it down, get one that has the hashgacha on it. Happy? Sit down. Yes, sir.
Before we go to some wonderful questions and answers, I just want to ask you one quick question. Concentrated apple juice, orange juice, frozen, does it need a extra?
Frozen.
Concentrated,
No.
the stuff you put in and throw some water on top?
Depending what's in there. If it's just the apple juice.
100% from concentrate, frozen orange juice?
Right. No
Ralph's.
flavors, no other junk added, other than a preservative, vitamin C, does not require hashgacha.
Good answer.
Chinese.
It's not made in China, it would have concentrate from China.
Okay, we're now going to go some questions and answers. And basically, I have a whole list of questions that were emailed to me, and my list disappeared. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, you were checking them out?
No, you left it in front of my face here.
Oh, gosh. If you do not, you have a question you'd like to ask, you can pass up a card to Zalmi, and if it applies, we will. Again, we're not covering restaurants. We're not going to tell you where to eat and not to eat. We're not going to any local issues. These wonderful rabbis here, it's just not their thing. Okay, I'm going to start with my favorite place. And shave one of you, I don't need a microphone. Pass it around. Coffee, Starbucks, airlines, hotels. You're at a meeting, they're serving coffee. Are you allowed to drink it? Black coffee, plain and simple. And the question goes further. Someone asked me a very good point. Why isn't Starbucks coffee Bishul Akum? Which one of you want to answer this? Rabbi Teitelbaum, you were on a plane today. Did you drink a coffee? Which one? One of you.
Good, same here.
No, let him slide on.
Okay, so I take issue with what you read on a lot of websites in terms of what you can and cannot drink. So I will tell you straight up, not everybody agrees with me. Those that don't agree with me are cordially invited not to drink coffee in these places. Generically, the way that I look at life, and I've had this discussion with other Rabbanim, other Dayanim, who begged me not to mention their name because they don't want to be in the middle of it. But they said that they agreed with my perverted view of life, is that a place that has no hashgacha, it's much easier to be mature what's happening there than a place that has poor hashgacha. Once you want to put a l'shem yichud on something and say, we're giving hashgacha, and you do a lousy job of it, in whatever way that may be, that is clearly problematic. As opposed to a place that has no hashgacha, what they do, they're allowed to do, and if it fits into how halacha looks at things, then you're okay. So when it comes to a place like a regular Starbucks store that has no hashgacha on the store, you can get a black coffee out of a machine that only does black coffee. I mean, because we're concerned about kalim, so if it's like an espresso machine that has a steam one on the side, I would tell you that that entire espresso machine would be, dairy, and matzah and kalim, we wouldn't use it. Half of what you read about how things are washed and what happens with the ham sandwiches they serve, I think is sorely lacking in terms of what really goes on. Or as one Rav in Eretz Yisrael told me, he said, I actually don't believe it, but Lu Yitzur, if you want to say that even they washed it together with the ham sandwich, which I really, not to say there's not some jerk out there who'll do something crazy, it's not a normal thing to do. Once you add soap, you're pagum the water, you're pagum tam, and you're allowed to. And if the back of Basar B'Chol, it talks about washing your dishes, and washing the milchik dishes with the fleshik dishes with dirt or soda ash in the water, which is what they used to do, it says it's mutter. So that wouldn't make your coffee usser. Different from that, there's a coffee place here that is not certified Kol Yisrael, that has Kol Yisrael milk on times, that the kollel next door has told us that on multiple occasions they found them, and I don't know how they did this, but they managed to figure out that the milk in the container marked Kol Yisrael was not Kol Yisrael. Why you'd want to drink anything dairy there is beyond me. I just don't get it. But a black coffee on an airplane in a styrofoam cup, a black coffee at a Starbucks in a styrofoam cup out of machines that just do black, I think you can drink it. And I had the discussion with the CRC, who has published numerous articles on why you shouldn't, and tshuva from Rabbi Belsky saying you should all of your complaints with Ashgacha, and I said, yes, but, you know, you're a kashrus agency, you're in a large, big city, you're there to promote kashrus, you should, and he said you should be promoting, people should go to kosher places. That's very true, I agree with that. Howsoever, if you're, you know, you're out driving, you're going somewhere, you're not in the Yiddish neighborhood, does that mean that you cannot have the coffee? No, it doesn't mean that you can't have the coffee. And in the end, they said, okay, you know, we're not gonna argue with you on everything. I don't know if I wanna say you're right, but you clearly have a point. So those who wanna drink, I think you can drink. Those that don't wanna drink, don't drink. So Bishalachim, the Arizal said it was a Shiloh Bishalachim, just like sugar is a Shiloh Bishalachim, and Halacha L'maisa, no one passes that way.
One second, does this apply to gas station coffee, like if you're driving across America, like I did last summer? Do you want to argue? Give me 1 second before you argue. No, does this apply to gas station coffee? 7-Eleven coffee? Similar. So 11 gas station,
No,
Starbucks?
no Hashgacha is better than bad.
Okay.
I just want to add one thing here, and it's time for the Rav here to work a little bit tonight also. There is an issue on the plane with coffee that comes from the pitcher. The pitcher very often, it's a cliche, and it will be used hot with milk. So even if they're bringing it now without milk, it may have been used with milk at one time, with cholavaka milk. Now, there are many poskim that hold that that's not an issue, especially a klisheni on cholavaka is not going to be in cholav stam, whatever, is not going to be an issue. What the halacha is for this kehillah is something that our illustrious Rav should answer.
Oh, 1 second. We got fair. Give him a coffee. Do you want to respond? Did you drink a coffee today on the plane? You don't want to understand it? You don't want to implicate yourself.
You can answer the coffee, so if you go into the room there, when they give it to you directly, that's something else. That is not an issue. That there's no issue. Only when it comes down in the picture that some people have the issue, some don't.
I haven't seen that. No, not to say you can't have.
Have you ever seen them use those pitchers for milk?
Yes, especially on international flights, very often. Not just milk, but they'll have milk and they'll have coffee with milk in there.
Why?
Why they do it, that I couldn't tell you, but I've seen it many times.
That's why he goes to Thailand and we don't, because we want to drink coffee. The other side of that is, domestically at least, that when you clear out a plane, when you land, catering comes in, removes all the kalim, and then you just replace everything. Then you bring a fresh set in that was clean. So if they didn't put the milk in on that flight, I don't think that would be an issue. What happens on some of these other international flights, I don't know.
Because it's not a ben yoimai. Why is it not an issue? If you hold that the cholavaka is a problem in a klisheni, then it's going to be an issue. Some people hold it is, and some people hold it isn't. That's just, that's just the way it is. And even a lot of this stuff that they're bringing in is from an
If it was done
international flight.
yesterday, in this keli, on this plane, this pitcher might not have had any milk in it, because they just cleaned it. On the other hand, this pitcher might have gone to Thailand last week. Yes, it's Ein Ben Yemei, and since it's Ein Ben Yemei and a guy does it, so bei der discussion, as the din is stam kileak, Ein Ben Yemei, is kann man sich verlassen, nach dem kann nutzen kolomine Sachen, that's the din. But the cheshbon of the coffee is because in the end you have Ein Ben Yemei of cholovakum or possible cholovakum in the Kusheni.
We're going to move along from
I'm
coffee.
saying it's an issue.
But I just said one last thing. This is a yes, no. If they serve it to you in their own china dish, are you allowed to drink it? Yes, no, quick.
I'd say no.
Ruben says no. Laser. If they serve you, were sitting in business class, probably you fly so much.
Definitely healthier and not, who knows what
I'm getting styrofoam like us in the back. Okay, enough of coffee. Okay, here's a question. I'm not sure which one of these four great rabbis can answer this. There's a question about meat. It's not about tahini. What is Lubavitcher Shechita? What is the difference in the agri, stuff that comes out of Postville, whether it has a Crown Heights Badat Hechsher or none. And as a follow-up to that, is if you someone who's not makbil, who doesn't in particular but eating about shechita, which is the best shechita you feel he should eat? And none of you are going to answer that, I know that. But the first question is, what is considered about shechita, and what's the deal at agri? Anyone before you can answer that?
Pass.
Ask? No, I know.
Any of us have any?
It's a fair question.
Never went there.
Never went there?
Wrong side of the Rockies.
All right. Whoever asked that question, I advise you to go to Western and speak to David Kagan. Okay, now the general question. A young man asked me this. Mashgiach, where do you get training to become a mashgiach? Is there a certification available for it? And the big question, which we all want to know, what standard is there to be a mashgiach? Come on, somebody. Okay, I'm gonna have to pick someone. Come on, that's.
Don't tell them the truth, just don't.
Is there a certification for mashgiach? I want to work for OK tomorrow. What should I do? Oh, come on, somebody. It's a very practical question there. Come on. You guys all started somewhere.
Okay, I'll start. There- In Israel, there are a number of people that will enroll you and take your money to teach you how to be a mashgiach. There is no such thing in the United States. The OU's methodology is feet to the fire. When we take a new mashgiach, we presume that you don't know what you're doing, and take you to the factory and show you what to do, and roll on from there.
Is that it?
That being said, I think that there's a couple of things that there's differing standards. First of all, there's a consensus amongst the kashrus administrators, kashrus professionals, of who's considered appropriate to go to a facility with written, procedures and just do like what Ruben likes to call warm body work. Someone that just has eyes and ears and can check a specific thing.
Paid kollel is my name.
Paid kollel. Then there's a little bit more of an advance where someone you see, he's an independent thinker, he's a troubleshooter, he's going to look out, he's going to notice if something's off, he's going to ask questions, he's going to interact. Then he can be sent on a little bit more independently. And then over time, those that build up an experience base and have knowledge in halacha, and begin to get involved in analyzing and interacting with rabbanim and things like that. And then you have others that are troubleshooters and going all over the world and have a vast body of knowledge, so they can go do that. But of course, for every rule, there's an exception to the rule.
I just want to say, for whatever it's worth, the Rav knows this also. We had a conference call with Rabbi Fishbane from the CRC, who's also the head of ECHO. And one of the things that he says he will be instrumental in implementing in Los Angeles in order to upgrade the general kashrus situation here is training for mashgichim. And his idea is that each mashgiach, before he's able to work, needs to go through this course and will receive some type of a diploma or license, and then every few years he will need to go back to a course and learn and keep updated with anything that's new. That's something that he says is going to happen in Los Angeles in the very near future.
Why do you start with apples?
Don't give me, I'm just telling you what he says, that's all. I'll say what's going to happen.
At any rate, the question is overgeneralized, because a mashgiach in a restaurant is one type of mashgiach. A mashgiach in a milk, in a dairy, to make sure that the cows are all cows and not horses, needs a different kind of qualification. and the mashgiach in the cheese factory to know exactly what's going on and how the cheese and how the whole thing is working, and he has to be there the whole time. He has to be mashgiach medium to make Venus Yisrael l'chol hapachos. Has to be able to understand machinery, to know what's going on where and how is it going through here. And as was mentioned before, a mashgiach that goes through a plant that has various productions going on, and that's even the local mashgiach that comes in monthly or whenever it is that the machshirim decide, has to know, has to be able to tell, did they change that machine and all of a sudden there's a condensate return? Is that machine going in, oh, what happened there? These two machines joined all of a sudden. He has to be able to see that. He has to be able to feel that. It's a different type of person. You have to be able, it's different. You know, a master plumber could be a very good mashgiach sometimes, knowing the plumbing. No question. An engineer could have a chush in seeing the engineering and seeing what's going on. We have a very good mashgiach that used to be an engineer. And that's why he's a good mashgiach, because he knows how to ask questions, he knows what to do, he knows what to look at. He's very detail-oriented, etc. It depends. It's just a different person, a different situation. What qualifies one to be a mashgiach? Depends where. As you say in Chassidus always, Sevanza Chumeret.
I just want you all to answer one question. This is, if you can. Officially, as far as I have no knowledge in this, but I said a Mashiach has to be Yiras Shamayim. Honest to good. What is your qualification? If someone comes to you, wants to work you, what do you consider Yiras Shamayim? I mean, just as a lead-in. Funny story. It's actually Rabbi Teitelbaum's. It's Yoski's Shver. Rabbi Mishlovin's Shver. There's a shoichet. Oh, it's Shver too. Satan. Yeah. There's a shoichet in Montreal. The Satmar had a shechita there. They wanted him to come shach for them, and he's a very good shoichet. He's like Shemaim, great Jew. They wanted to come shach, and he said, "Fine." He was master to take the job. And the way I understand the story, and he's going to correct me in about 20 seconds. The way I understand the story is they told him, one second. For you to shach for us, your wife has to wear what they call strip. Some, they wear stockings with bulletproof stockings, what do you want to call them? And he told him, if the only thing that's important for me to shach for you is what kind of stockings my wife wears, you can take your shechita and go somewhere with it. I don't need your shechita. That's basically the story, the way I heard it. So, but bottom line, what's considered a Yiras Shamayim in a mashgiach? Hey?
We have another
That's
breakfast.
true.
You're asking how you measure Yiras Shamayim.
Can I ask Rabbi,
What's
Rabbi
it?
Bovenstein,
What's
to
it?
elaborate on this organization that you were talking about? I think that's the most practical thing that was spoken about
They
tonight.
told me nobody wants to hear about it, so
We'd like to hear about how they're gonna function, how do people know, if you go into a restaurant, how are you gonna know?
I'll
We're getting
answer
to
you
that.
with one
That's the
word.
next issue.
It's not up to me. Ani offer tachas raglov of the Choshev Rov here, and whatever he wants to say about it, it's his prerogative, and it's his deal. So whatever he wants to say, he can say. It's not for me to say.
Right.
Liz,
I mean, if you're asking how to measure Yiras Shamayim,
That's
one second.
if a Talmud that goes into yeshiva has to be taken kibbutz or not, you have to know Yiras Shamayim has to be taken.
I think
Well,
let Rabbi Heidelbaum answer the question that was asked first. He wants to make sure you're Shemayim.
I'm just basically saying that there's no objective criteria to measure Yiras Shamayim, unless you know the person. And you're talking, if you know the person, or you ask around about him, you want to see who he is and who knows him, and you know what's going on about him. So yes, so you have to ask around. How are you going to measure Yiras Shamayim? How are you going to measure Yiras Shamayim? And if he comes in, if somebody comes in and he knew that he was going to be looking for a mashgiach job, so he let his beard grow. How am I going to measure that? and then 2 weeks later, you find out that he's not only not wearing his telescope, but there's other things around. I mean, in Measure Yerushalayim, just for a story that I heard about the Rebbe Rashab, that once told somebody that his Yerushalayim is good enough to be a Melamed, not a butcher. Forget about a mashgiach.
Okay,
Thank you.
this is a lead-in to the, this is a lead-in to the next issue, which we want to cover, as we're running late on time, about restaurants. Very simple question. According to what the rabbi said here a couple weeks ago, I walk into a restaurant, it's my anniversary, let's say tonight, go to a restaurant, I sit down, when the waiter brings the menu, am I supposed to say, 1 minute, bring me the mashgiach first? Very simple question. And how am I supposed to know what products they're using? Am I supposed to ask them which shechita they use, or milchige place, which cheese, etc.? And then there's a follow-up question to that.
Yes.
Okay, we'll get to the follow-up in a second. But plain and simple, you walk into a restaurant,
I understand that the
owner's
oversight
room,
should be dealing with
there's a
it.
mashgiach, Tmidi. Am I supposed to interview the mashgiach before I start
But I
ordering?
understand on the ingredients in these things is something that the oversight is gonna be dealing with. Rabbi Bornstein, could you talk about it a little bit? Because like Mendy said, this is
I'll say
probably
this with
the most
B'shus of the
practical
Rav.
thing you could talk about.
I'll say one thing, with the Shus of the Rav, one of the things that the committee is supposed to do is similar to what the CRC does in Chicago.
And what is that?
And that, I'll get there in a second there. Mr. Footnote. Anyhow, they put out on the counter of every one of their establishments, they put out a list of what they have. In other words, if the tuna is not Bishul Yisrael, they will write there the tuna is not Bishul Yisrael. If the vegetables are bodek, they'll write the vegetables are bodek. If the vegetables are triple washed iceberg lettuce, and that's the only thing they use, they will